So sorry about that, little technical difficulties, but let's just jump right back in. I was basically saying, your story is interesting again, and with the fact that Heru Aishat is like the foundation of like humanity. You mentioned a little bit about family earlier in the terms that you can't really please your family. Like you're not really doing this for your family per se. You're doing it for yourself. But wouldn't you say that the fact that you're doing something like this for yourself is in fact you doing it for your family? Because essentially you are your family. You are your ancestors. Your ancestors are you. So whatever you're doing to elevate yourself essentially is like you elevating like your lineage or elevating yourself, elevating your line. So how is your relationship with your family improved from what you're doing? And how has your relationship even with your ancestors, the ones on the ground, improved from what you're doing? Like, what's the connection you've had in terms of those kind of relationships? How have they improved? Because oftentimes I think we can, like in this society, it makes us focus on all the negatives and it makes us focus on all the fear and all the bad things, but we don't look at the good things enough. So I know personally coming into spirituality as opposed to religion has helped a lot of people, especially myself, this brother here, in a lot of ways improving their relationships with their families. So how has that happened for you?
That's that's a deep question. So as always, I'll give you an honest answer. So for me personally, I'll say it's a profound question because it points out it's a good point, right? So two ways you could look at it. In one regard, for me, I have to accept the fact that my beliefs are different than my family's beliefs. And for me, in the context of my family, that's never going to change. It's never going to change. So I'm not on this trip where I feel like I need to share what I've learned with my family so that they can gain an appreciation and an understanding for it. Because listen, some of us, it's not going to happen. It's just real. It's not going to happen. Like some of our families are so deeply ingrained in what they believe that for you to share what it is that you're learning, even if it's just to share, it will come as an attack to them. It will come as an attack to their beliefs. It won't be well received. Right. Now, if you have a family that's open, I've met many people whose family and their parents believe differently, but support them, listen to them, and say, okay, that's interesting. Me, I don't have that. My mom, now just to answer the other question, my life, the way I speak, the confidence in which I have, comes from my understanding of my place in this divine world. And that's through African culture, and it was through the Kemetic legacy in which I learned it. So to answer the question, how has it helped my family? How has it contributed? And how can it, for those out there listening, it will help everyone that you come across when you walk in your highest truth. When you walk in your highest truth, when you accept and you walk your journey and your path, it helps everybody around you because one, you're gaining more understanding to the situations you find yourself in. Never mind what others can provide, what insight others can provide to you. You're going to literally be finding the insight because when you come to African culture and when you come to the legacy, no matter what it is, when you come to these other ways, these paths, it requires effort and it requires work. Like the Kemetic legacy is not for lazy people. Point blank, it's not. It requires effort. It just requires you to take some steps to look into yourself. So in my situation, my family, they believe what they believe. I believe otherwise. However, me having different beliefs, I haven't taken up a crusade against what they believe in. Because now I understand what they believe in, perhaps even more than they do. Because a part of this journey for me was doing a little bit of history, finding out how Christianity came about, how it came to evolve. So how can me walk in this path and learning more about my ancestors, learning more about the indigenous beliefs of my ancestors, how has it helped me? How has it helped my family? How has it helped the living family that I have here, the best way is by allowing me to move in light. When I say to move in light, it allows me to move with a greater understanding of my place in the divine scheme of things. Now it helps me with my anger. It helps me with my patience, because now I can understand that other people are on their journeys as well. So it's not for me to blast them with the light of truth. You know, when someone's in darkness and they're just used to dim lights and in darkness, man, you can't just go flash a floodlight on them.
Right.
So I always say it's not our job to go blasting people with the truth. No, but you will always meet the people who ask the questions, who invite you to share with them what it is you know in particular.
You were that person at one point.
I was.
Right.
I was open. I was open and I asked. And this is the thing. So like, I know I don't know everything. So let me humble myself and allow myself to be taught. And I think that's the thing that's important for everybody to understand. Humble yourself and allow yourself to be taught. And I also believe what's equally important is sometimes you have to suspend your disbelief. You have to suspend your disbelief. Sometimes you have to approach, when you're learning something new, you have to approach it from a position where you suspend everything you thought you previously knew about that topic. Suspend all of it and allow yourself to be taught. Because when you allow yourself to be taught, the universe opens up.
Which technically even makes less of it about belief.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, you know, so belief is just one layer. We use that word very loosely, but at some point you got to go beyond belief.
Exactly.
I read a book. It was a profound book, kind of hard to get through, but it was profound. It's by a man named Alan Watts.
I've heard of it.
Alan Watts is come to find out, he was kind of a famous guy. He's one of them philosophers like Ayn Rand, and you know, and others that had some, you know, philosophy that you can gain something from. But the book was called The Wisdom of Insecurity. And in the book, the whole basic premise of this book was understanding that everything in life changes. The most consistent force in life is change. Things are constantly changing. So there is wisdom in insecurity. What he was arguing is that there is wisdom when you accept that nothing is secure. There's a wisdom that comes from it, because then now it allows you to deal with change better. Because now you're not caught off guard when things change, because you understand that the universe is constantly changing. So the idea that you can ever be in a position where you're just secure, you're safe, and you're protected, it's an illusion.
I think I might have a different understanding of insecurity than.
So I mean, so and really, like, for him, the premise that he was doing is totally redefining the word insecurity. So for him, there was wisdom in accepting that there's no security. And so that's what his insecurity was. His wisdom and insecurity was accepting the fact that there is no security.
So he basically took the word and like redefined it in a new way to fit his philosophy.
Basically, like, you're secure when you accept that nothing is secure. That's where your security comes from. Your security comes from knowing that nothing is secure. It's almost like a contradiction and a paradox, but we live in the realm of contradiction. So there's so many things that we could say is true, then I could give you a contrasting opinion and we could say that's equally true. Because we live in a realm of contradictions where there is enough space for two opposites to both be correct. You know, one doesn't cancel out the other. What's hot? Hot is different in temperature than cold is, but neither one of them invalidate each other. You know what I'm saying? They're both different ranges of the spectrum. Like truth is, this is my understanding and what I've been taught, truth evolves, right? Truth is constantly evolving. Our understanding of what we know to be true is evolving. Some things that we know to be true today, in the past, we didn't know because we didn't have the information. Like, as we gain more information, the things that we look at as true sometimes may change. But then there's something else that always is, and they say that's reality. Like, truth evolves, reality is. And so I always say, I just strive, because I don't know everything, man. I don't know. I'll answer some things with confidence, but then I'll also tell you in the same breath, well, maybe I'm wrong too. You know what I'm saying? You know, but maybe I'm wrong. But I'm open. Like, so someone said something like, and it goes back to this conversation, and to just kind of tie it back into family, right? I think there's just a great wisdom in knowing that you don't know the complete truth. I think that some people have misunderstood certain religious teachings, and in it they believe that this is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a dangerous position to be in, because when you think that you know the truth, then you're not open to what may be revealed. And as much as I've come to know in this life, I've come to know that there's just always layers to this thing, man. There's so many layers. Nobody knows all of the layers, because it keeps getting deeper and deeper. And I believe that your ability to understand life is depending on how deep your soul goes. Like, how deep you can go is how deep your understanding of life will go. So a lot of people, their understanding of life is just on the surface because they haven't dared to go deeper than the surface. But when you start to go deeper than the surface, when you start to look at things and then just keep an open mind, we confuse observations with judgments. Like, so many times, instead of just making observations, we attach our judgments to them. And I think there's more to gain when you can just truly be an observer and look at the world around you and ask questions without judgment. And then you start to dig deeper into what it is that you believe. The deeper you understand what you believe in, it allows you to understand other people around you in some miraculous way.
I think that's essentially what our ancestors really did, though, right? Because you said something interesting I want to, like, bring it back to. You said there's, like, truth, right? Truth can always be ever evolving, because you might learn something and then you might realize, oh, maybe that's not what it is. And then now you, in a way, are in a sense evolving. So from a traditional indigenous perspective, we understand that to be like becoming. Like things are always becoming. But at the same time, just because we are becoming and we are becoming trying to get towards something, that's like our goal, right? That's what we're striving to. But that doesn't mean that there isn't actually like a definite truth, which is, like you said, like reality. Because sometimes there's like a reality, and then there's like a reality that we kind of create for ourselves as human beings.
Because you
I
can't
think that's what
perceive the actual reality.
Right. And I think that's where the danger of it really comes in. It's like when people are going from the perspective of their own truths versus the perspective of the actual truth of a situation. So, you know, that, so it can vary depending, but it's an ego thing.
It's not always that clear.
Right.
It's not always that clear. It's not always that clear, but at the same token, that's one of the ways we advance, right? It's by kind of stepping out of what we know and into unknown terrains. But no, absolutely, man. It's definitely, it's not always clear, and I think, you know, just going back to make this point as well, I think one trouble that we face with is that a lot of us, we only like things that are convenient to our beliefs, you know? Like, we only like things that are convenient to our truth and our reality. So, like, when it comes to, you enter, like, a new tradition, you starting to learn some things about African culture and all that. Same thing with different religions. People pick and choose what's convenient for them.
We call that panhandling here.
Yeah, panhandling. That's dangerous, you know? Like, that's dangerous because that's when what you're doing is you're picking and choosing to the comforts of your ego. And your ego can be the trickster. It can fool you because the ego tries to protect you from the unknown, because it has this fear. It has this fear that you may not need it. You know, or it just has this fear that you might get hurt. You might get hurt by what you learn, and you might get exposed to something. But the ego, they say, is just constantly doing things to just protect us. You're afraid of heights? You're going to stay away from roller coasters and glass elevators. You know what I'm saying? The ego is projecting that fear into you, and it's affecting the decisions that you make in life. So the same token is that when we come to understand the journey of life, which is the journey of the soul, that sometimes the things that we run from are the things that we need the most. The things that are inconvenient to us are the things that are revealing what we are running from. Because I think a lot of people tend to look for what's easy and what's convenient, because true spirituality can be very discomforting. And that's what people need to know.
Truth.
Like,
that's the truth.
Because this is a path of enlightenment, man. This is a path of alchemy. This is the path of burning away those rudimentary elements that's within us, those animalistic desires. Like, in order to conquer that, to have control over your mind, to have a connection with your soul, you have to sometimes, make hard decisions. And oftentimes, because of the way that society raises us, we just look for instant gratification, right? And we run away from those things that we feel are going to hurt us, that may create some detriment. So look at, in the context of this conversation, some people stick with the religion they're with because of the discomfort of learning something new. Because to them, it can become discomforting if you learn that most of what you've been taught may not be the full truth.
Yeah.
Right.
That can be very upsetting. Like, some people, it can shatter their world. So what do? They stay away from it, only for the fear of the illusion of fear. You know what I'm saying? The illusion of fear, the illusion that you're going to be losing something. So why risk losing something that they've had for so long? Because we grow comfortable with the things we grew up with, to the point that to let go of the things that we grew up with, can for some people harm their psyche. Like, some people go through traumatic experiences when they let go of certain truths that they've held on to. Like, they don't know how to adapt and move on. So I don't, I know it's not an easy path. It's not easy, but at the same token, I always say easy and hard are terms of relativity, right? It's how you look at something, whether it's going to be easy or hard. I like the word challenging. Like, true spirituality is a challenge, but it's not an impossible challenge. It's not a challenge that has no purpose and no intent. But you have to challenge yourself. Like, and sometimes it might be simple as just having a conversation that you don't want to have, or you know what I'm saying. So I think that's the thing, that nowadays a lot of people are just falling into comfort zones. And they shy away because of negative connotations of the African cultures and African religion, the whole voodoo thing and all that. And, like, listen, not everybody has a spiritual experience, but if you live a certain kind of life, you're going to see something, man. You're going to experience something, whether it's in your dreams or something. You're going to learn that there's more to life than what you see on the surface, and it's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be afraid of when you truly understand who and what you are.
Now that we're on the panhandling thing, though, Joe, I kind of like want to kind of shift, because it is very easy for us to, look at the religions, right? Look at the Abrahamic religions, look at many of the different things that have kind of happened to the traditions now that we're here in the West. Like, even Halloween just passed, and that even comes from a Celtic tradition where they would have a fire festival for the ancestors that had passed the last year. And then that fire festival, they would burn the fire to sort of ward off bad spirits, and then they would leave their doors open. They would leave their doors open to invite their ancestors, and the good spirits to come and be with them at that time. And, over time, it just kind of changed because of religious impact on those traditions. So we could very easily look at, a religion and say that the spiritual panhandling is built into it because it's about, like, hey, they won't give me this. Like, if we go back in time, like in that story from when the Greeks were invading and trying to take over the world, Rome was trying to take over the world. It's like, okay, well, let's go to the people who have the most knowledge, the people who have the elaborate structures, the people who have the culture, the wisdom, all of these kinds of things, the wisdom of math and all of these kinds of things. So let's go to them. They go, they get, educated a little bit, and then they go back, and then they're like, okay, well, we don't want to have to deal with 77 commandments. That's a lot to figure out. We ain't trying to do all that. We just want some, nice buildings, yada, yada, all this good stuff. So then they end up doing their own thing, and then that becomes like the standard. You kind of see that that's the world that we live in now. So even beyond the religions, it becomes that now anybody who's trying to pierce that mystery of, like, spirituality on a kind of general sense, they get kind of sucked into this immediate, like, okay, well, this is what we have for you. Like if you're looking for something, this is what we have for you. It's kind of like, we call it the spiritual salad bar approach. Like there's a salad bar that the system kind of sets up for you. You could take this little bit from here.
Kind of like with the New Age things.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You could keep Christianity, keep it if you want to, but do it this way.
Yeah.
You can, even all of the denominations in Christianity and Islam, all of that, even Judaism, it's like you got all of these different ways that you can do it. But now what I find interesting is even that, because you were talking about the 90s and the whole like comedic spiritual, you know, uprising that was happening at that time, and a lot of groups came out of that time. Even like my principal in high school, he really kind of shifted my perspective to start looking towards that kind of stuff because of what happened to him in the 90s. So I want to ask, like, a lot of the spiritual organizations, or so-called maybe even spiritual organizations that are focused on having black people like reclaiming quote unquote black practices or something that's from African spirituality, a lot of those are even sort of doing the same panhandling. And it becomes very hard to decipher like what's real. Like, you know, not to toot our own horn, but I'm gonna toot my horn when I can, because I'm an initiate of like a organization that really has roots and families that go back in time. And I can go to those people right now and ask them, like, you know, take me to this person, take me to that person, and they'll take me to the actual temples of the people that are still connected to this legacy, as it goes all the way back to what people know as ancient Kemet. But we know that Kemet is just like a culture, so it could be anywhere in the world. You know, there's pyramids in South America and all of that. So it's like you said, the comedic martial arts thing, right? It became about that person.
Well, he didn't call it comedic. He said African.
African martial arts, right? They got it from somebody in Africa, but where's that person in the equation now? Right? It's like, how do they get lost inside the equation? How do the actual Africans that are still connected to the cultural part of it get lost in the equation? Like, what's your experience with that? Because I don't know where you are now in your spirituality and, like, you know, what's happened in the past years.
So I would say this. It's a complex question. It's a complex question. And me, I speak for myself. I'm not speaking for any organization. I stand on my own. I have Kemetic background. I have learned from a teacher that's a high priest in the Kemetic temple. I was there for like 15, 20 years.
Where's there?
Temple of Anu. I learned a lot from Hemnecha and the Sitbidi Ra Sanku Keper of the Temple of Anu.
Damn, it's a long name.
Some of it is a title, but his actual name is Ra Sanku Keper. So, all right, it's a loaded question. Like, it's really a loaded question.
I mean, it's a loaded thing because it really does, like you were saying, like, there's a new age of so many people who are now like seeing, like, the world is falling apart, like literally, like at the seams, it's like falling apart. And people are just like, what is going on? Like, every time I'm online now, it's like I read the comments and people are seeing it. It's not like they're just feeding into it anymore. Now they're like, this is like terrible. Like, what's really going on?
Well, I would say the world is falling apart, but it's more so the world that we've been exposed to is falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So is it?
Like, there's like a real
is it?
reality. Like, there's, again, going back to what we were even talking about, like that truth, like our truth, and then the actual truth. So right now our truth is falling apart, but then there's a world that exists that's like an actual truth beyond this
that's true.
artificial world that we've been implemented into, that's like there, and this is falling apart, and now people are like looking like, okay, what's next? Because I always like to bring it back to this, like, most people can't grow a tomato. People want to talk about spirituality and all this stuff, but can't really grow a tomato. And growing a tomato is probably one of the most spiritual things you can possibly do, because you're in direct connection with the earth, which is even in direct connection with the very deity that is in charge of cycles. Now, with people looking and seeing like our world is falling apart, it's like they have to like now have a clue of like where to go. And I think what Kenny Bosch was getting at is like it becomes confusing for those people because they don't really know where to go because there's so many different factions and facets of places, but you don't really know what's actually connected to what, or what's connected to something like concrete or connected to like the truth.
Yeah, so I mean, I like completely understand. So I think there's the best way I could respond to it is just looking at different aspects of that question, right? Those dynamics. I would say for one, we're in what, 2023?
Mm-hmm. According to
the
Gregorian
if we're going to
calendar.
use that just as a metric, like just to have some kind of common ground,
right.
The point is, right, if you believe in reincarnation, and I think many people do, especially in the African spirituality and different indigenous spirituality, not just African, Pan-African, I would say. If you believe in reincarnation, then we are the ancestors that we've been talking about and reading about. I don't know if anyone ever thought about that, but you gotta think about it. If you're talking about reincarnation, then we are
That's a huge part
those
of
who
it.
came before. Like you were reincarnated. You talk about reincarnation, we talk about how we feel like we've been here before, then we have, because we are those ancestors that we are reading about. But that idea is so off because many of the ways that we were raised, we weren't taught to believe in reincarnation, and we're told it's hocus pocus and it's voodoo talk and stuff like that. So I say that to say this, that we are entitled to add on to what was there before. Like, so the idea that we're just supposed to be following some ancient doctrine that's thousands of years old and not be able to contribute to it and add on to it and evolve it, that's just not how the universe works. Like, every generation always added on. And so the question is what spirit are you adding on in, and where are you, like, what is the foundation? That, for people who are searching and trying to find, it can be confusing because you got a lot of people out there that will take advantage of people who are seeking. You got a lot of people out there that are charlatans. Who present themselves, like that. I learned that word in high school, and for some reason it stood out, and more throughout my whole life, bro. Yeah, it's a bunch of charlatans out here. Like, make no mistake about that, because spirituality has been pimped.
We had a charlatan on the show last week.
Yo, like, I called him out too. Like, no. No, man, but there's a lot of charlatans out there. That's real talk. So the question does bring up valid concerns because they mess up some spiritual, like some people that are genuinely looking for a spiritual like experience or are looking to understand culture and all that, they get pimped. Like they get used, or they fall into the wrong circle, man. They fall into something where, I would say this, like, it comes a lot like on the leaders. Like, leaders in this kind of a like role that we're talking about are key, because a lot of times the people who are looking, they're looking and they're judging the leader. Like, that's what their metric is. Like, they're gonna listen to everything you gotta say, and you could talk all this philosophy, but how are you living your life? Because if you're the leader and you're the teacher and you're teaching this, like, the people are looking for you to be the example of what it is that you're teaching in.
Exactly.
So I would say this, and what I've also learned in my life, truth always reveals itself.
Yep.
It always reveals itself. Truth always rises to the surface. It doesn't matter how many lies. It doesn't matter how good of a liar you think you are.
That's a fact.
The truth comes up, man.
That's a
like,
fact.
there's no way you can stop it from rising. So it's only a matter of time before charlatans get exposed, and they always do.
Yep.
It's a shame that some people have to go through the hurt and the heartache that's involved in it. And it's been in the churches as well. How many people have gone to the church and they want that experience? And that's what happens when people come to spirituality. They bring all the baggage from the church and their experiences that they had in the church with the pastor who let them down, with the pastor who was sleeping with this, that, and the third person, or the time their family got caught. I've been hearing stories, man. Some of the people in these churches, they'll call out your family in front of an entire congregation and embarrass you. And I think like there's some tough love that needs to be given sometimes, but then there's some things that you just don't do. Like, and so many people, and we're dealing with, have traumatic experiences based on their spiritual experiences in the past or their religious experiences in the past. So as those of us representing culture, we always have to be aware of that. We have to be sensitive of that, and we just have to keep in mind, man. We like, excuse my friends, but we all fucked up a bit in this game.
It's true.
Like we all done been through some shit, man. We all done been through something like traumatic in life. But what I learned is, as well, as that as you're growing up, there comes this point where it's becoming a man or becoming a woman where you say, this happened, but I have to move forward. Like I have to move on and I have to keep searching. Right. I mean, so that's one way I could respond to that. But the other part is that that's why it's hard on leaders too, because now you got everybody looking at you like you the charlatan. The minute you say something, and for black folk, it's always extra because the black teachers and black leaders always have to dance and jump through hoops and be perfect and excellent. When listen, I try to be positive and not to criticize and talk about other folks.
Let it out, Joe.
Hey man, I was watching one of these Christian evangelists on something on TV, and he was preaching. He's like, and the good Lord he just reached to me and he told me that if you give $3,000 in the next 2 hours, and I'm looking, I'm like, yo, this man is on TV and he's
dead serious
he was serious. And he was like, and I'm getting a message right now, and if 3 people call with $3,000 in the next 2 hours, people are calling in, and I'm like, yo, how many people are really? There are people that are really listening to this guy and believing this guy. Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you what, like, yo, maybe the guy spread some good word, but I'm gonna tell you this: there are some of us, right? You can't fool, and you can tell when someone's speech is pure and without thought, or when they really have to think heavy about what they're saying in order to. Yo, when you're speaking from heart and you're speaking from inspiration, it almost seems like you're not thinking whatsoever. Now, you may have, obviously it's a process, but it's not contrived. I'm not picking words. Like, I'm using the words that are coming out to me in the moment. I'm not trying to it's not theatrics. Like, it's not theatrics, it's pure.
Well, that's
it's troubling, man, because there are a lot of charlatans, and I'm looking, and this is what people are getting caught up in. And so there is always that concern and that question when you're finding like a new house, a new someone to learn from. And that's why I always say, like, always open things, like suspend your disbelief, allow yourself to be taught, but also ask questions. Like, also ask questions and don't be afraid to do so.
I think that's the way you suspend the disbelief. I think asking questions.
Yeah. I mean,
but I think you said something just now. Like you said, when you're going to learn from somebody, you basically you have to ask questions and check. I think the main point, the main focus is like, okay, but what's like the history of it? Because you also said something else that was interesting. You were like, people feel like we shouldn't have to add on to like the traditions or to something ancient, or we shouldn't just be following something ancient. But it's kind of interesting because if you look at like traditional African culture, it's about maintaining what your ancestors gave to you, but not just maintaining it, improving it. But at the same time, you still have to have a direct connection to like your lineage for you to know what you're maintaining or improving upon. Otherwise, then it just becomes a free-for-all where you're just still kind of like falling victim to panhandling and then thinking that you're improving on like a solid ground, but then you're improving on just everything that you're seeing. But you might not be even improving on it, because if something has a history, then the history of that thing has like principles, it has values, it has like a certain way that it functions for you to like maintain it. And another interesting point you brought up was reincarnation, and that plays a huge aspect in it, because traditionally people know when a child is born, people know the spirit that the child is. They know who that child was in the past life. Like, we have ways to check that. Like, even to give a child a name, it's depending on the spirit that came back and what the spirit came back to do, like the goal of the spirit. And like, you have a very interesting name. Like, how do you guys even get your names? Like, what's the process you guys use to determine like the spirit, to give the spirit the name?
So for me personally, I had gotten my name when I was with the Temple of Anu, and it was a process. So the way, like, and so I would say this, like, you could go, like, for the organization I was a part of was Temple of Anu, and the teacher has his approach. His approach was, in his concept, is that he's taking the ancient legacy, right, and making it in a way based on the principles of the ancient legacy, based on the principles of our ancestors who came before, adapting it to a modern day. Listen, the reality is, especially for those of us that's living in America, our history was lost. We were disconnected. And so the genius in our ancestors of this continent, the whole Black Power movement, like that was their efforts of reconnecting. And so efforts were made. Like, you know, there's a history between African Americans and Africans in Africa. But I would say at the same token, like a lot of us that's in this continent, and a lot of people nowadays, some people don't even look at themselves as African. These are Black people we talking about. That's another something that we gotta deal with. They say I'm not no African.
I call that mental illness, but you know that's
but we still gotta deal with it, right? So, and at the same token, this is just my view as well. At the end of the day, you ain't gonna save everybody. Like, you're not gonna save everybody. So the idea that we're gonna be able to save all Black folk, or all Black folk gonna be on the same boat, or we gonna be on the same page, is just listen.
Right.
The continent itself hasn't been united. Like, so just think about it. We're talking about Africa, the continent itself, where we all claim is home,
right,
has not been fully united. Now there's a unity. Don't get me wrong, you know what I'm saying? But we have to understand that even there's the respect of different sovereign tribes.
Right.
There's the differences, but in the differences, there's still a commonality. So just that the idea that we all gonna have like the same beliefs, or we're gonna believe the same thing, or we're gonna walk the same path, it's just, that to me is just unrealistic. So I will always say, like, to me, my test the people, because I don't know everything. So it's not my role to go around judging who knows what, but what I will see is what are the work that you're doing. Like, that's my question to me. Let me see the impact that you're having on people.
Right.
Let me see the work that you're doing. Like, that's what I'm more over anything. Like, people, bro, I've had so many conversations, and we could talk all these metaphysics and all this, but when it comes down to it, what type of life are you living? And let me see the impact that you have. They said the true test of a person's spiritual strength is to see the amount of people that they could touch and influence. So if I see someone that's influencing people, that's empowering them, or helping them to find that within them, then that says something to me. And I don't care whether we disagree on what to call nature, or they call it, or I call it the inter, and you call it the netter. Like, you know what I'm saying? We get caught up in words and pronunciations. So I always want to see what impact it's having on people. But there are just some things that, and the reality is, like, there's just different things. Everybody's not looking to connect themselves with Africa. So does that mean that we disconnect them, or we exclude them from African culture? Do we push them away, or do we say, well, here, let's
excluding themselves, because technically, right? Because you opened up a very good, piece with the panhandling question, because again, there's this concerted effort, right? But the point where it becomes that we have to start to draw the line, because it's really a revolution, if we're being honest, right? It's what Marcus Garvey was trying to do. He put all of his efforts behind, right? Trying to wake up people and get them to wake up to the reality that not only is there another place, right, where all of us can say that we came from. Let's just, start off there. Humanity started somewhere, and it started in Africa, and then from Africa branched out all over the world. I even just came into a gem of, small knowledge the other day that, like, even here in the Americas, they traveled to South America first. Absolutely. And then from there went up into North America. And it's not like they stayed here through the seasons. It's like, okay, it's too fucking cold. I'm out.
It's cold.
I'm out of here. We out. We back to South America. So, there's all of these ideas and these sort of barbaric sort of characteristics that we end up falling victim to, but not wanting to be honest enough about, like, the approach that we have and where it's coming from. Because on the note of the spiritual panhandling, it's like, yes, there's an effort to, get closer to your culture. But at the end of the day, okay, if I know that there's a link that's still there, then I should be looking to connect to that link and say that that's what's taking me towards where I want to go. right? Like I'm an initiate of the Dogon temples, so I technically owe a sort of like allegiance to the Dogon temples, right? And their leaders, the ones that are making sure that these temples are here for me to be a part of, for me to gain something from.
And the kingships.
Exactly, those kingships, all of those things that give that sort of permission, that line, that structure that needs to be there in order for someone like me to come into this and benefit from it. But, you know, that African conscious community that we found ourselves like trying to find that link through, so many times it becomes that like we become enamored with the idea of it, and then the idea of it takes us away from the actual technical part of it that makes it the culture and not something else. Because we have a plastic table here. This is coming from someone's culture. Somebody's culture said that this was okay. It's like, no, don't use wood. Don't use like something from nature. Make a plastic material and then, you know, use some metal rods and now you'll have a table. Now this is what you should use for something like this. So then it becomes that like, okay, now anything I want, I can make it. Yes, it's based on this natural thing that we have, this thing that we should be connected to, but now it can become whatever it wants to be. So I want to ask a more, I guess, personal question, because I want to know, like, when did that point really come where you were like, okay, I can't, because now you're even saying, like, I stand alone. And that to me as like
I say I stand alone with what I was speaking on when I answered the question. I want to make sure that you know I'm not answering on behalf of the Temple of Anu's views or anything like that.
Of course.
But, so my response was my views.
So in a spiritual sense, would you say that you stand with anyone?
What do you mean stand with anyone? Am I with an organization?
An organization, a tribe? Anything like that?
So, I was with the Temple of Anu for probably, like I said, 20 years. I still consider myself Kemetic.
That's a long time, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not new to this game. You know what I'm saying? I'm really not.
Wow.
I was with them for close to 20 years. Right now, like the last 3 years, I literally have been off the map. So I haven't really been in contact with anybody. I literally unplugged. And so I went through an experience that gave me the opportunity and the time just to step back. And so I went on a walkabout. So I haven't literally for like the last 3 years, I've really been on my own journey where I had to process things on my own and take time for myself. So when you ask if I'm with anybody, I'm like, bro, I'm different, man. I ain't with, like, I learn from teachers, but I'm my own person. Like, that's me. Like, that's how I move. So I understand having commitments, especially when it comes to organizations. But if you're asking about me personally, I moved to my own drum beat. Like, I moved to my own drum beat.
Okay,
I was with the Temple of Anu for 20 years. And so I learned a lot. My outlook on the world and my beliefs are still Kemetic. I'll go to events, but I'm not your typical, like,
So
one, I'm not a neophyte, and two, like, I'm just at a point where I'm branching off to do my own thing and to work with people on my own.
So can I ask you, what was the cause or the reason for you to leave your home?
There was no cause and no reason. As I said, there are things that happen in my life. Like, literally, it's something I'm not going to talk about on air, but I went through an experience where I stepped back from everything in life. I'm talking about, it was nothing happened specifically with the temple, but this situation, like, I unplugged. Like, I unplugged from everything. So I stopped speaking to the people I knew. And this was a part of a spiritual process that I was going through as well. But there was nothing in particular that, I don't know if you said that caused me to leave or there's nothing caused me to leave. Like, my life, I unplugged from everyone around me. I wasn't even in the state. I wasn't in the state. I was nowhere around here.
But wouldn't
I didn't even have a cell phone. Like,
so it was a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So on the basis that is a spiritual organization, wouldn't you think that they would have like an answer for you if it's like something
But who says they didn't? Like,
So
you guys are asking me questions, but they kind of like, you're not. I understand you're trying to get more insight into what happened, but I never said I didn't consult with them about what happened. You asked me if I stand on my own or stuff like that, and I'm telling you, I move on my own, but I'm not telling you I didn't speak to my teacher. I didn't speak to the organization. That's something I'm not going to speak on this. That's personal. That's something personal. That's not for me to sit here and tell you the conversations I've had with my teacher, or to tell you the conversations that I had behind closed doors, or to tell you that's private. Like, it's not something you wouldn't discuss your relationship with somebody else in your temple on a podcast. You wouldn't put that here. You wouldn't ask them about their personal experience.
Yeah,
with their
it's
teacher.
not
You
so
wouldn't
much
ask
the
them about-
personal conversation. I'm more so trying
You
to.
started out by saying you was going to ask me a personal. You wanted to make it more personal. So you started out.
But it's not about
It was.
necessarily like the personal conversation. I'm just asking, like, if there's a sense that you're on your, and I'm just using those words because it was something that you said in the beginning, more so on like you walk to your own beat, you kind of do your own thing, which is a general understanding that I can identify with. You know, we're thinkers. You know, that's why we kind of connect with each other. That's why we understand each other. We're thinkers. But on a cultural sense, like, I can say that I walk to my own beat, but at the same time, I sort of answer to a structure, you know, that has its roots. So is it that you're not necessarily like answering to it? That's really what I'm asking. Is it now that you're like standing alone in your spirituality?
I grew out of it. For me, I grew out of that phase.
I get you.
I grew out of that phase. The time for me to be under a teacher is done. It's done.
Why
So
would
you
say
say
that
life is your teacher? Is that what you're saying?
No, not even. I was meant to do more. I'm a teacher in my own right. You understand? So for me, my time, and I understand that. Like, when I was with the temple, I was committed. We had classes, people had responsibilities, there's structures, and I did that. My life took me on a different course, and so, like I said, it started, and it was all part of a process for me. But I know for myself, I was always meant to be a teacher, and my approach nowadays, I'm comedic. That was what resonated with me, but I'm not trying to teach comedic. I'm not. Like, that's what resonated with me. That's what gave me my foundation. But my approach, personally, you ask me about who I am as a person, my goal is to reach people beyond the comedic legacy. My approach is to work with people beyond African culture. That's me. I'm on something that's on a cosmic consciousness level. So I understand it. And like I said, I gained a lot of insight from the comedic tradition, but I'm branching out, and my goal is to work with people beyond a cultural experience.
So when you say work with people beyond a cultural experience, I'm trying to get an understanding of like your goals right now in life. So are you trying to do philanthropy work, or are you
Like
trying to do school, like build a school, like a charity? Is it something on the lines of that?
No. I'm working with people. So when I say that, no matter what you believe, I believe that all humans have a soul, and that there are many things that we have in common. Ironically and interestingly, my name is Joseph Campbell. There's a famous author named Joseph Campbell. And his books and his premise, one was called The Power of Myth. He was showing how myth and all these different cultures are telling the same story. There's this cosmic story, the story of the hero with the 1,000 faces. So my calling is just outside the realm of African culture. And now
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I don't want to cut you off, but because you said hero, but hero, the word
Heru.
itself comes from Heru.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And I'm just trying to understand because that whole story that every culture is telling essentially is the same foundational story.
Drama.
It's like the holy drama as we know in like African spirituality. And again, it's going back to that whole concept of like everything has like a history. So I understand. I kind of get what you're trying to say. Like, you're trying to go beyond like the experiences that you've had to like gain new experiences. But at the same time, it's almost like you, if I'm being honest and being real, you can never really get away from the past.
Right.
Because the past is like, you're a combination of your exposures. You're a combination of your ancestors. The past is like the kind of like the, how do you call it? The foundation that you build the house on.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you're trying to build, you still need that kind of like foundation. So it's like you can't really go beyond Kemetic or African spirituality because it's even the foundation of human culture. So cosmically, because our ancestors were so intelligent and so brilliant that they were able to communicate and understand the cosmic realities. And that's what even built culture. And that's what spanned around the world. So it's like, how can you really get away from that?
And that's what even makes it like, because I get what you're saying. It's like, how much further does it go, right? What's beyond what I think I know, right? Because we want to be thinkers and we want to continue to have an open mind. But then when it becomes like, what's beyond it, and it's sort of like I'm beyond it, then you open up a door where it's like, okay, now the things that I've sort of, all of that exposure that I've kind of come across, it turns into having like less of a validity to what you're going to do next. Like because to me, it's almost kind of like a sad state of affairs that any black man should think that he has to sort of go out on his own to find a spiritual and energetic connection to the cosmos when his ancestors
what would be wrong with that?
Because your ancestors have that
what would be
history.
wrong with that? Well, what if that person doesn't have access to that? We're talking like, to me, like you guys are talking idealism. Like ideally, it would be nice. Ideally, it would be nice to have a connection to something that's uninterrupted, but that's not what we're dealing with.
But how many people do have access to it and don't use it because it's not? You said it yourself, like it's convenient for a lot of people to just do what's, normal to them, and then you come across something like that's actually connected to roots, like you said earlier. The guy that was teaching the Kemetic martial arts or the African martial arts, he came across somebody who had an actual exposure to a cultural like origin, but then he took it and said like, okay, now it's me. And now I'm the one that's teaching it to all of these people, and none of those people end up hearing about or going to see the actual culture that he got it from.
Listen, I'm gonna choose to disagree with both of you on your perspective, and I'm okay with that because I do not believe that you need someone from Africa to validate your experience as an African living in America or as someone who's practicing African religion. We don't ask no permission from anybody on the continent to do what we do as Africans. That's what being African is. We don't have to.
Hold on.
Why not?
Listen, I don't need permission from nobody in Africa to say that I'm an African.
But what's the logic behind that?
I
don't need the permission.
Hold on.
I don't get my authority from them to speak on what I speak on.
When you say permission, what exactly do you mean?
The idea that you're trying to espouse is basically that you need to have this connection to Africa to validate something or to validate the teachings that you're doing. And what I said, you're taking many of my comments out of context, and it's kind of difficult for me to clear them up.
I understand, because it could be anywhere, right, Joe?
Let me just finish though. It's difficult for me to clear it up because you're asking me these compound questions that I still haven't even gotten a chance to answer some of them. And before I can espouse on them, before I can answer them, you're giving me more questions. Like, y'all just keep hitting me with all these questions.
I mean, it's an interview.
And not giving me, but you have to give the person an opportunity to respond in the interview, right? I can't respond to everything that you're asking me. You ask me a question that's loaded. Before I can fully respond and articulate a rounded out answer, we're off to the next one. So I'm going to say something. I said I stand on my own. I said, at the same token, I said I'm Kemetic. I learned a great deal from the Kemetic legacy. I said the way that I understand the world and my place in it was Kemetic. So therefore, I can never separate myself from it, right? Because I'm telling you that my view is Kemetic. But what I'm also telling you is that I'm working with people outside of the legacy. I'm not limiting my experiences to teaching people who's interested in the Kemetic legacy. That's not me. What I'm doing is working with people who are trying to do good in their life, who are trying to better themselves, who are trying to understand themselves more in the world that they find themselves in. That's what I'm doing because of the experiences that I've gone through allows me to talk to people and communicate with people through all different aspects of life. Now, if you want to talk about cultural organizations and their connection to Africa and what they're claiming, then speak to them. Like, I'm not the one for you to speak to about that, to give you criticisms about who is official and who's not official and who's connected to what and who has allegiance to this and who owes it to this and who, like, you speaking to the wrong person about that. Like, you are. So you ask me certain questions. I'll tell you about my background. I'll tell you where I learned. And now it seems like you're telling me, well, you can't go beyond the Kemetic. How can you tell me you can't go beyond the Kemetic legacy when we still learning about the Kemetic legacy? Don't nobody got that whole thing figured out? Do you know how much pieces of information was lost?
Why wouldn't you say that the people, that the
nobody
families
has it completely figured out?
Why wouldn't you say that the families that are still there, that are continually extending and in secrecy, continuing to have those teachings and that knowledge passed down through their bloodlines? Why wouldn't you say that they have more of a connection than what we have here?
And I'm not even talking about them. Like, they're not even like, what would make you even think that I need to give some kind of criticism or some kind of critique of what they're doing? Yo, if they're doing that, then good for them.
So hold on.
Good for them.
Let's bring this back.
I don't need to compare their organization to listen. If you're doing good, you got this connection and you getting it passed down and you helping others, then good. But that doesn't invalidate other people who don't. Like, so you can't hold this thing like you the one and only truth because you got this connection and you passing things down, and wouldn't you rather have it from some place that's coming down? Like, it don't matter to me. What is the results? Show me the results. Show me what it's doing for people's lives. Show me that. Like, I don't care who passed it down to who. I really don't. And I don't think the people nowadays, they don't care. They want to see what is it. Show me the living example. Show me how. I don't care what you talking about, where it came from, because just because it got passed down doesn't mean that it's not without its issues. Doesn't mean that it's not without its need to improve. So
we can agree on that.
So then what we talking about? Y'all just keep pushing this idea, like this whole thing about validation, and don't you think it would be better to go someplace where it be validated and where it pass down? Or you said you can't separate. Like, come on, man.
So the reason why
reason
why we're saying that, right, is because I just want to bring it back.
Y'all picked the wrong one to answer.
I just want to bring this back real quick because you said you are helping people. You're talking to people or you're dealing with people, but you're doing it based on your experiences. And what I was saying was you can't really get away from it because you have to admit that those experiences, you even said in your speech, is coming from the Kemetic legacy.
That's not what I said, bro.
So give us an understanding of what you mean exactly, because I still don't fully understand what you mean by you're working with people.
I don't know what else you want me to explain. I said I'm working with people who want to do better in their lives, who may be faced with challenges, understanding, who want to find happiness, who want to find meaning, who want to find purpose. Like, those are the people I'm working with. I don't know what y'all asking me right now. Like, really, what are y'all asking me? Because, like, I'm like, just, what are you asking me?
Well,
like,
if I could just, kind of
one thing, now we talking about a whole nother
follow
thing.
the
Like,
through line from the beginning of the interview, because all in all, as always, the Gator Gates podcast is really about having the hard conversations that get us to a point where we can connect on something new and something that's, maybe not what we expected. Because in the beginning of the interview, we were just kind of talking about your exposure to Catholicism, as a child, which we all can relate to, our, exposures to Christianity and things like that in the beginnings of our spiritual journeys, So as we go through it, you start to find more and more things, and you start to figure out more about what you were previously exposed to. So really, if I'm being sincere, Joe, all I was trying to kind of follow through on was, okay, this is what happened, and then this is what happened next. But you had to look back at what was behind you to say, like, okay, there's something that I can build on here. And how are you contributing to what you've been exposed to before, what came before you, right? Just like we all have a mother and a father, we want to make them proud. We want to carry on, the good things that they've done. So, it was really just a effort to kind of follow that through line and go from where it started with the exposure to certain things, and then now where you are with your exposure to things now and how that's all connected. That's all it was about. If, I offended you or anything with my line of questioning, I apologize.
You couldn't offend me if you tried, bro. Well, I'm good. I understand. Thank you for sharing the explanation.
All right. So,
We
what
got
time
any
is it?
questions?
Yeah, we just had one question, really. It was just one real question. And it was from DeMarcus. He was asking Joe, what's an example of a challenge we may face on the spiritual path? I don't know if you want to answer that.
I'll say this, like, what is a challenge that you may face on the spiritual path? The spiritual path really can't be separated from the human experience. So the thing is that in our lives, we've separated the human experience from the spiritual journey. When once upon a time, they weren't two separate things, because we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So if you're a spiritual being having a human experience, as you go through human experiences, you're to gain some kind of spiritual understanding, or in some sense, it becomes a spiritual challenge. As above, so below, right? So we may have challenges on the physical level, and I'm gonna make this more concrete in a second. We may have experienced challenges on a physical level that are manifestations of something that's greater. When you talk about spiritual battles, oftentimes people deal with anger, and they deal with depression. Like, these are all things that are spiritual in nature. So the approach nowadays tends to be through medication. And I'm not taking anything away from medication. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to sit here and give my 2 cents on it, because it's not my place to do it. I do believe in more of a holistic approach. However, there are certain things that the origin and the source of it is not in the physical realm. So what are some challenges you may have on the spiritual experiences? Some of the same things that you're dealing with in life. How do you deal with your anger? How do you deal with keeping patience? How do you deal with difficult people? How do you deal with self-doubt? Self-doubt is something that's big, and all of this connects back to our spiritual experiences. So to walk the path of enlightenment is to gain a greater sense of your role in this divine scheme. It's something that just goes beyond our understanding, something that I don't believe anybody could fully understand. But as you evolve and as you grow more aware, you start to become more aware of your connection. When you become aware of your connection, you start to gain a power from that. You start to gain a strength from that. You start to gain a confidence from that, seeing your connection with everything else around you. So to answer the question, those are some things that you see as challenges on the spiritual journeys. No different than life, because life, we've made it to be the secular and we separated it from the sacred, but there's no separating the secular from the sacred. Life is all intertwined. So the same challenges that you go through in life, oftentimes it's the signature of a spiritual issue. Whether it's your self-doubt, you feeling like you don't belong here. A lot of people go through that. They're here in this third dimension and they feel like they don't belong here. So why is it that you don't feel you belong here? Like, the sources of it can always be, like, this is how our ancestors dealt with it. Nowadays, we got all these different branches of science with these different psychological terms, talking about the psyche, talking about childhood traumas and all that. Our ancestors looked at it as life, and we knew that certain things could have an effect on our lives. And so the spiritual journey is no different than your journey in life. It's how do you become a being that has an awareness of this world that we live in which we're all interconnected. And that's our answer, question answer.
Yeah, we got sound bites.
Yeah.
Huh?
Put that together.
There's questions in the chat.
Yeah, another question. How do you gauge spiritual well-being? What power and strength that you gain from spiritual well-being look like to you? That's exactly how you wrote it.
I would say this first and foremost. I would say this, right? In life, if we look at the example of the scales, and we look at the example of finding harmony and balance in our lives, there's never a moment, or if there is, it's a brief moment where even as a spiritually enlightened person, you still gonna go through challenges.
Right.
You still gonna go through challenges, right?
That's life.
Absolutely, it's a part of the playing ground in which we find ourselves. Like, there's no escaping challenges. The more enlightened you become and the more aware you become, you just stop complaining about them. You know, you stop feeling like the world is against you. You stop whining about them, and you realize that these are, in fact, opportunities for growth. As cliche-ish as it may sound, it's a mature perspective just to look at this journey and to see it as one as growth, rather as one as a constant fight. Damian Marley, reggae artist, has a song called Struggle, and he's just talking about, like, yo, forever, like, so long as we forever use the word struggle, then we're forever going to be struggling. So if you look at the spirituality and the spiritual path as a struggle, then you're always going to be struggling. But if you start to understand, like, in life, there's just no easy way, and you stop looking at everything as a fight and as a challenge, and you look at it as what you do in order to grow. Doesn't sound too exciting, but it's empowering, because the next time you're up against an obstacle, you don't take it personal. When someone is lashing out at you, you don't take it personal. That is a sign of maturity, and that's a sign of a spiritually enlightened person, when you stop taking everything personal and you start to understand that, listen, life is not supposed to be a bed of roses, but also you'll have those times where you can rest in your bed of roses. You know, and so life has its cycles, and part of being a spiritual warrior is just understanding that. We don't complain when the storm comes. We know that the storm only lasts but for so long. So holding on to what we know to be true. Oftentimes, it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to internalize it. We could talk all these high spiritual philosophies, but if you're not internalizing it, it's going to show. And so my teacher, Ross Uncle Kepper, always say you have to stay conscious in the crisis. And that's the thing. When we get into the crisis, a lot of us become unconscious. We forget everything we know. We throw it out. We throw it out the window, right? We start praying to Jesus again. But when you gain the spiritual enlightenment, what I'm started out with saying, really want to say, is that it's a journey, man. It's not, there's no ending to it. It's a lifelong journey, in that you're forever going to have obstacles and challenges, but you look at them through a different lens, and you're no longer, troubled with self-doubts and self-fears, the fears and the self-doubts, like, that's a big part that stops us from accomplishing goals that we can easily accomplish if we just had a little bit of confidence. And I believe that walking the spiritual path improves your confidence, not based in arrogance, but based in the understanding that you are a part of something that others have been a part of from the beginning of time. And that the same issues that you go through, others have gone through as well. And if they can have gone through it and improved themselves and have become better by walking certain path, by following certain principles, then you should be able to follow those same principles and walk in a similar path and have the same effect. Now, like, one of my areas of disagreement as well is because we live in a modern day age, and so things have to grow and things have to change, and it's our part, each one of our part, to contribute to the overall teachings and the overall understandings.
Ready to start rapid fire?
Yeah, so at this portion, we have a segment called Rapid Fire. So we're going to go through some
I thought
topics.
we was already going through rapid fire, man. that wasn't rapid fire?
No, that was a slow burn.
But I'm afraid
That was a
y'all
slow
right now,
burn.
man. That was y'all slow burn. I don't want to see y'all rapid fire. Really.
Rapid Fire, we're going to go through some topics, and then we're going to give a little commentary.
Yeah, it's just
on it.
like current events.
All right, rapid
Basically.
fire.
Basically.
Get prepared for 1 or 2 word answers.
All right, so first up, E29, you ready? The American Museum of Natural History takes human remains off display. So this museum somewhere in America has had literal human remains on display.
It's an
for
evil
years.
world we live in.
Exactly, for years now, and because of like some recent like social pressure to take them down, I think they said 27,000 like pieces of remains were taken like out of exhibits in that museum.
So, you done? That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
So, I want to know, are they going to remove all of our ancestors' coffins and tombs and remains from the big museums?
Hopefully.
Are they going to do that? Are y'all going to stop digging up graves, digging up tombs,
They waiting for
digging up
Killmonger
temples?
to come get them.
Are y'all going to do that? Because if y'all could do that, y'all could stop doing that BS. Or y'all making too much money off of our ancestors' legacy? That's what I want to know.
Nah, that's my similar response. I'm like, they've been doing that. They done had our ancestors up in glass cases for so long. And it's just crazy that they don't even look at them as people. Like, right. That at that, you know, like that's one thing that just always just bothered me, man. Like museums and like, yo, when you resonate with the Kemet legacy, it's like, yo, you resonate when you see that. You're like, yo, they straight up grave robbers, man. They took these things out of graves and put them in, like, that's exactly what they did. Nobody shunned them for that. Nobody gave them any kind of backlash.
Like, if I dig up your grandma tomorrow, like, you gonna be tight.
Let me go up in somebody's
jail.
mausoleum and start digging up their ancestors and put them on display. And like, you know, all hell would be raised.
Yeah, it's facts.
But that, you know, listen,
it's crazy.
The things that have been done, like in this country and all around the world, by those who have led, and it's just fucking bananas, bro. Like,
I think they just gave back the heads of some of the kings from like the Congo region. They had them pickled in jars. Those are the ones that didn't want to convert to Christianity. They chopped their heads off and put them in jars, and they had them on display.
And they just got them like heirlooms.
They just got them.
And that's just what we know of, man.
That's
just what we know. You know, there's a hell of a lot of more things that we don't know. That's what life has shown me, man. You think you don't know? I done been seeing so many things I never could have imagined. And that's why I truly, he who knows that he knows nothing at all.
Right.
Like, I don't. Listen, some of the answers I've given, I try my best to answer questions to the best of my ability, but at the end of the day, I don't like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass. Nah, man, you know, there's certain things that you know through experience, and that's why I really just try to speak through experience, man. Like, things I speak about is through experience. And what is my experience? My experience is some of his Kemetic legacy, but other than that, my experience is life, man. I've been out there in life. Like, I've really been out there in life. I've gone through things. I've been through a full range. Like, I've been through addiction. I battled with that. I've been through depression. I battled with that. I've been through jail. I did that. Like, I've been homeless. I've been through that. Wow. And at the same token, I've been a teacher and I'm a lawyer. You know, drop the bomb on that one. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You told us that earlier. Shit.
I've done things.
That's crucial.
Boy, speak the legalese.
Yeah, man. But like, listen to that. But I say all that to say was just to try to flesh out more what I was saying earlier. This is what I mean. Like the experiences I've had, man. I've come across people from different walks of life, different cultures and stuff like that. And I'm just choosing to work with a wide range of people. Like my teacher in the temple and whatnot, it's Afro-Kemetic. Like it's an Afro-Kemetic temple. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not selling out. I'm not doing nothing like that. Right. But for me personally, I just feel a calling
to help the world.
To help the world. And
that's what it's about.
That's what it's about.
But I'm not going to turn my back on culture. I'm not going to turn my back and act like it's not a part of who I am. It's not like you see me still speaking about the Kemetic stuff. Like it's always going to be a part of me. So I'm not separating myself from that or nothing like that. So at the same token, it's like I got to go with what's in my heart, man. Like, you know, can't nobody tell you otherwise. Like when you follow your heart, when you follow that, like, how do you know when you're following your heart? You'll know. Like, you'll know because you'll start to feel like, yo, this is it. Like, just something starts to click, something starts And I just know, like, I've started out as a teacher. Like, I've worked with, like, kids and youth. I've seen the development phases. Like, I understand. And that's why I chose to work with the youth, because I knew how important that phase was in their development. So these kind of, like, conversations, I was one of them teachers. I was like, yo, close the door. Let's talk about this. Now, I taught them about the word indoctrination. I'm not trying to indoctrinate anybody. You could question anything I say to you.
Right.
Like, that's my thing. Just ask questions. If I tell you this, that, and the third about chemistry, ask the questions. Like, I'm not like, ask questions. Like, if someone is teaching you about it, ask the questions. But there's always a difference between asking questions and interrogating. Like, some people out here interrogate you. Like, it's not, that's different than asking someone questions to try to get an understanding. Don't interrogate someone. Suspend your whatever issue, bias that you may have, and ask questions. Like, there's an art to asking questions. But yeah, this was like, I've been through a lot in life, like, outside of just my experience in the cultural realm. You know what I'm saying? And all different types of people, different types of experiences. And that's why, like, within myself, I just know that my calling is to work with, like, outside of the, because everybody's everybody's not meant to be comedic. Even the Dogon stuff, everybody's not meant to walk these paths. We gotta be real about that, because some people are just happy where they're at.
Yeah.
Like, some people are happy where they're at. Some people talk the talk. Like, some people talk like they start out like they want to do the work, and then they fall off. Like, that happens a lot too. So like,
You said it.
Yo, having spent that much time in the Temple of Anu, there might be different principles and different ideas, but yo, you guys work with people as was done over there, like different groups. And like, my teachers and them come from the legacy of the temples in New York. Like, they were all connected. Baba Haru. Some people know Baba Haru up in, like, you know, had the shrines in them. We got to give some respect to them. And quite honestly, the way they were practicing it, they were doing the best they could with the information they had.
Right.
They were all connected to Dr. Ben Yohakin, Dr. Jeffries, like all them scholars, Sheikh Anta Diop. Like, my teachers, like, learned from them. Like, that was but that's how they got the information until they started doing the lectures over in Kemet, going to the temples with Anthony Browder, and who wrote the Browder file and all that. And so, like, I learned a great deal, man. That's by all means. Like, even Rastafarianism got to do with who I am. Even Christianity has got to do with me.
Of course.
So, like, and it's kind of funny, because like, my teacher had told me, like, years ago, he kind of saw the day coming where I would move on. Like, and I was like, kind of bothering me and something. I'm like, why would he say that? But he just saw it because he called it. He'd be like, yo, there's gonna come a time in your journey where you move on. And like, that's me. So I'm comedic, man. Like, it's done a great deal for me, but right now I'm really trying to give my contribution back to the world. And for me, it's just, you know, my foundation, I can never deny the strength on which I stand. You know,
I understand, though. It's like, if you don't want to just...
These tattoos ain't going nowhere. These tattoos mean something. Like, that's how serious it is to me. You know what I'm saying? I can't turn my back on it, but at the same time, I don't want my statements to be misconstrued. Like, it ain't a part of who I am, but I'm just choosing to step out there and to work with people in a wider context than...
Instead of working with just black people.
Yeah,
essentially,
man,
is what I'm getting from what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not just working
you
on
want
just
to
black
expound
people,
to
man.
just the world. And I think that's the main part that we missed in the initial interview.
Yeah.
Because that would have been a huge piece that we could have really expounded on. That's a huge context missing.
Yeah.
And that's huge, because essentially, like even Kenny Bashu mentioned it, right? If we're being honest, whatever we call Kemetic spirituality is really for the world, because African culture, African spirituality is the foundation of human civilization and of humanity. So it's really the duty, if you have that knowledge and that information, to spread it to the world. So that's the part of the piece that seems to me is missing from a lot of these so-called Kemetic organizations. But, you know, that's great that you're doing that, and, you know, big up yourself for that. But what's the next topic on Rapid Fire?
All right. Next up, we got Biden. Biden's talking about he's prepared to go to war with China in support of the Philippines.
Bro, I didn't know Biden was still alive.
So supposedly,
you
Grandpa,
sure that was Biden? Ain't the clone, right?
Grandpa got word that there was like a...
So now they say go to war where? In the Philippines?
with China,
China.
in support of the
In
Philippines.
Jesus Christ.
Bro,
Man,
any
don't
any
fucking surprise me,
excuse
man.
to go to war with China, bro.
Nah, for real.
It's World War III. It's happening
Supposedly,
right in
it's
front
just
of our
because
face.
like a ship from the Philippines ended up in Chinese territory, and then they like had a little fight, a little squabble.
That's what the U.S. damn near took over the Philippines, put in all their
Exactly.
damn military bases and all
Exactly.
that shit over in the Philippines. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't be knowing that.
Yeah, it's true.
So like on that note, like when we gonna stop having all these like 80-year-old people be politicians in this country? Like that's what everybody's talking about. Like, what the
Get
fuck is
grandpa
going
out
on
of
with this
office.
country? Like, and that
Nah,
that's
facts.
one of the bigger issues. Is like, yo,
Yeah.
the people in power in this country refuse to let go. They
Mm-hmm.
refuse to let go. The Mitch McConnell, or the dude is that blacking out, like he's blanking out
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
like live conferences, and he's talking about I'm gonna finish out my term. I'm gonna do like, yo, what is going on here?
Go to
But
sleep, bro.
Now this whole stuff that's going on, like I really think about everything that's going on in the world, and I don't know what to really make of it.
But big up to like Burkina Faso, because they got, a young person, Ibrahim. He's now in office. Well, it's a coup, but it's like you got to take. They had kind of given a blueprint. It's like you got to come together and actually have a structure to be like, all right, we can stand up against this and
Bro.
actually get it, and then make some progress with it.
Bro, ain't no coup happening here in America though.
I'm not saying
That's
that
the
it's going to
thing.
happen
Not
here,
yet.
but I'm just saying
Not
like
yet.
that's the
Right.
blueprint
Yeah, it's
for
growing
it. You
to
just
that
got to
point.
take it out their hands. but-
It's growing. You got them militia boys out there waiting, boy. Like hey, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean the Bloods and Crips team up.
Yo, the only
it might
coup,
be a little
if a
something.
coup happens, it's because they're gonna elect Trump again. That'll be the only time you see a
This
coup
is
again.
just
That's
crazy,
it.
bro. We like whether it's Trump, Biden, you don't have no choice to really pick from. Man.
Yeah,
Well,
be
I
alright.
will say this though. I do believe that Africa is the salvation of the world. Like I do believe that wholeheartedly. Because like Africa is the richest continent. Like I said, it's the birth of culture. Like all these, like even the brother that did the documentary, Hidden Colors. It's called Hidden Colors. Man, he broke everything down, showing, and I mean, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, the brother, he was a professor down at Rutgers, and he wrote the book They Came Before Columbus. He wrote African presence in early Asia.
Yep.
He wrote African presence in early Europe. Just showing like the African has been everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And so right now, like much of what we've seen is happening is like, just look at Africa, man. It's been the one place that's raped and pillaged by everybody all across the world. The most. And until this day. It's sad as well, is even when you got leaders in Africa doing the same thing, falling to these colonial powers. So like my understanding, my belief is always when it comes to culture and when it comes to African people, that Africa is the salvation, but it ain't gonna be done without African Americans as well. Because the unity of African Americans and Africans, that team up, when that happens, when we start bridging that gap, like then there's going to be some powerful things happening. So I do believe that. I do believe that wholeheartedly, and it is something I like to see, and I think it's something necessary. I don't want to get off topic on the
As they said, just to add on to that, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. That's that.
Next up, talking about the war in Gaza. So we got two topics that are pretty much connected. So the tally of just children being, lost in Gaza is now at more than 3,700. So there was actually somebody I saw on Instagram earlier. She had posted a list. There's an actual list of the people that you can look up and the ages. Like you can sort it by age. Literally like from zero. Like it has to start from zero. Just at age 0 is like 6 pages worth of names. And I'm like, damn, man, it's
How they
really
getting these
like,
names though?
People
That's
just
another
dying.
thing. Well, that's
But like, what's the how they recording the names and the people? Like, if it's chaos to me, if it's
I feel what you're
chaos,
saying, though. I feel
and
what
like
you're saying.
people just dying left, right, and center,
Yeah.
who the hell is going to go give the names of the people that's dying? Like, who are the
family.
people? Yeah, but bro, they in distress. They in camps.
bombs
They
dropping all
What you
got
mean to tell
bombs.
me that if it's bombs dropping right now, you in Jamaica, it's bombs dropping right now. Your
Bro.
grandma, your mother, your father, everybody in the crib.
Yeah,
and
but who
it's
am I
distress.
reporting that to?
You gonna find somebody.
You know what happens,
where you gonna go? First off,
Here's
where
my
you
thing.
gonna go?
To me, reporting it to somebody is the last thing on my mind.
Why?
That's the last thing. I just can't see that happening, bro.
So what you gonna do?
There's two things that happen. If it's really that bad, if
Yeah.
bombs drop in, my mental state is not gonna be on reporting to the fact that
what if they're missing and
this
you want to
amount of
report
people
them
died
missing?
in my family, right?
Well, you may not know this. So this is the thing. You may not know they're dead yet, but you're going to report their name because they're missing.
Right.
Now later on, they might find the body and say, "Yo, this person died." You know what I'm saying? They have them triage centers, man. There's so much things going on.
Yeah,
People trying to find their family. They giving their names up, like you know.
So
he's
it
smarter.
is
He's
chaos.
smarter than both of us.
Nah. Hear me out. So is there like a center that they're going to just go give names? You get what I'm saying?
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, honestly, I'm sure there is.
Here's the thing, bro. This is why I don't trust these things because these things, the media, the news, all of these places giving us these what do you call it?
The
blogs,
statistics
the
and all of that.
statistics and all that. It's still owned by the
That's a fact. That's a fact.
So
it's media.
like,
it's media at the end of the day.
It's media. I don't know.
I feel
Media.
you.
It's
I feel
deception. I don't know.
Who knows how close that
Yeah,
number really
yeah,
is?
but they did say I don't know, they threw the number out 50%. That sounds extreme. They said like 50% of the people in Gaza Strip are children.
Damn.
Like the majority of people in Gaza Strip are children.
I mean, that makes sense.
From the time they were placed there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, connected to that, the
yeah.
UN Council has just rejected a ceasefire by Russia. So Russia basically went to the UN and was like, okay, well, we want to have a ceasefire. Just stop all of the violence that's happening in Gaza. So let me pull this up real quick because it's funny the people that opposed it. There were 5 votes in favor, which were China, Gabon, Mozambique, Russia, and the United Arab Emirates, and then 4 that were against it, which were France,
makes sense,
Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, with 6 abstentions, meaning that they didn't vote, which were Albania, Brazil, Ecuador, Ghana, Malta, and Switzerland.
What the hell is Japan doing in these votes, bro? Japan, you're like this big, bro. Like, you remember what happened? I think that's what it is. They don't want to get another bombing. Right. They're like, all right, we remember what America did.
No,
anything that they're doing, we're going to go on this side. And we don't even like the Chinese anyway. So whoever's fighting them,
whatever they voted for, we don't want it.
We don't want it. That's crazy, man. Yeah, man. But that's messed up. But, we all know what this is. This war, to me, it seems like it was started on purpose. They want an excuse to go to war. Like, there's something behind this.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something deeper going on, man.
It's going to boil to a point where people can't keep their hands out. Because it's kind of like people got their hands up right now. Like, y'all deal with that on your own. But it's got to get to a point eventually where it's going to be like, well, somebody come help a nigga out.
Yeah, man. I think Israel just wanted an excuse to go up in there anyway. They wanted the rest of that land. So,
Yeah. Makes sense. Next up, we got a prep school in the UK is now using AI robot as the principal. So that's just what the headline read. But it was actually that the principal is using the AI robot as their assistant administrator, which is also interesting because it's like, what? Like, you got a computer that you could just use with your fingers. So you just got ChatGPT running what should I do?
He wanted to make the news.
Yeah, bro. I don't even have a comment on that one. Just we talk about that shit so much, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's running rampant, man. It's running rampant.
Next topic.
Speaking of the United Arab Emirates, so they want to build an underwater train from I want to mess this up, Fujairah to Mumbai. So
Mumbai in Africa?
No, India.
Oh,
so yeah, there's there's a strait, and if they were to build that train, it would kind of take them straight there because you would have to kind of go. If you were gonna go by land, you would have to kind of go up to that little corner where India meets, the
Bangladesh,
all that kind of stuff, and then come down. But if you were to just build that train, you could get straight across, and supposedly they have a connection. Those 2 cities have a connection where the ports are very beneficial for one another.
So if it's about the ports, why are you building a train?
I mean, I don't know. It's big business. Man.
This is what you do when you got money.
Exactly.
You got so much money, you just build trains underwater. Like, fuck it, we'll build a train underwater.
I feel like at this point they just trying to just create the most ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Like you seen the Lion City?
Yeah,
The Lion
Saudi
City.
Arabia.
The Line. Yeah, in Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah.
Bro.
The line.
What?
Exactly.
And they have another one. I think it's the Octagon.
I don't know.
Bro,
They ain't gonna build
this
that
is
shit.
nah.
I
They
don't
building
think
it.
they
Nah,
gonna
they building it, bro.
They building it now.
Yeah.
Like they started laying out the thing. They actually doing it, bro. They ain't just talk.
Bro,
They starting
Dubai
construction now.
How much the apartments cost?
more than we can afford.
Damn.
But Dubai, bro, Dubai was a fucking desert. That whole shit is not
Word.
real.
Word, they
The
built it.
water, the
They
ocean,
built
the
water.
river, it's
Like,
not
they built the
real. They
ocean.
built that, bro.
Damn. I mean,
Yo, they make it rain out there, man. They got
real.
for real. They got the technology, bro. They make rain clouds. They seed clouds and make it rain out in the desert. Like,
Shit.
this is fucking bananas.
That's that
bro.
oil money, bro.
Yeah, they got money, but I'll tell you that's one thing. UAE
Which
got
one is
money. Them
it's not
Saudis,
that
them
one.
Saudis got money, bro.
one time for the one time.
No, assalamu alaikum, Muslim fan. I ain't with these brothers. That ain't me. That's them.
Next up, man. Next up, we got Earth Pod in Arizona. It's a company in Arizona that says that they will turn your body into a tree after death.
I heard about this. I saw this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It's
man.
an evil world we live in.
Yeah, no, for real, man. I saw about this thing. They make human compost. Like,
Yeah.
when
That's-
you're dead, like
bro,
you get
that's-
that body. They put it in this pod, like literally, and
Word.
it breaks down your body like in 2 days. Like 2 or 3 days, it breaks down your body. I saw it, man. It was something like they were showing like the process or something. They showed the machine and like put your body in here and
I got it right here. So it says, in the case of cremation pods, the ashes are placed into the pod with other materials. A young tree is placed above the pod, and then the pod is planted. The pod is biodegradable, so it just disappears after planting, and then the tree grows. But then there's another one that like literally turns your body into soil.
they
And they
turn your
just
body into
put
soil.
you in there. Like, we got a compost bin in the back.
Yeah,
Like, you put
seriously.
leaves and dirt
It's
in
a
there.
compost machine.
They put leaves and dirt in there with you, and then turn it
They
up
turn
to
it on, like, yeah.
131 degrees Fahrenheit, and then that
like in a
heat
couple of
just
hours you
boils
bake.
you.
So you
Some
mean to
soy.
tell me people are out here
That's
eating their
all.
grandfathers and their grandmothers?
No, but they're using it for gardens, yeah.
Damn,
man.
I ain't
yeah, bro.
Whoa.
Bro,
They
that's
using their
cannibalism.
ancestors,
I ain't even
That's
think about that.
cannibalism.
Yo, that's
They
crazy.
That's
using
a
their
huge
ancestors to
spiritual crime,
fertilize
bro.
Damn.
See, this is the type of stuff that we get into when you live in
Yeah.
a society that is no longer living
that's
on
the new
cultural
age bullshit.
principles. This is some new age shit.
Yeah,
Because
we-
culturally,
we-
that's a
yeah.
big no-no.
Word.
That's a huge no-no. That's a big spiritual crime.
Mm-hmm. The cremation to begin with, but then the cremation.
Then you eating
then
grandpa.
planting that, using that to plant your. Man, yeah, that's crazy.
Damn, bro.
It's
I
wild.
guess so, man.
Damn.
I guess
It's
so.
life.
I guess that's
May
the
Jesus
truth.
be with you.
Yeah, I guess they live in their highest truth, man. Like, yo, fuck this body.
Right,
Like, yo,
right,
fuck this body. I
right.
don't care about this body. I'll do what
We
y'all
out.
want to do it when I'm done.
We out.
Oh, all right, maybe so. Guess so. But
Like you said, Joe.
it is
I don't
missing.
know.
It is missing the context. Like, I think that's why, like like civilizations were great back in the day because they had rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understand? Like,
Taboos, do's and do
man,
nots.
Exactly. You don't have no great empire with people just doing whatever the fuck that comes to their mind. That's why
Exactly.
we need structure. And even just as a human being, like, never mind just that, like, you need structure. Like, to understand the world around us, we created structure. Like, we created days, we created months, so we could have some kind of sense of structure. So you you need it. And nowadays, we're just divorced of that altogether. Everybody. That's why I said I try to be careful with my words as well, because it's very dangerous when people just want to go out there half-ass, like, with half-ass philosophies. They'll study half of a philosophy and think they're versed on it and go out there and just start doing their own thing, when these things, like, people, like, yo, to be a Kemetic priest, you study for 40 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it would take a lifetime for you to understand it. Even, bro, as much as I've learned, as much as I've been through, once again, I don't know shit. Bro, it's so vast, and I'm saying that, I'm like, I do know things, but honestly, compared to what I don't know, and
So
compared
much.
to the
Right.
things that I don't even know that I don't know,
Right.
Exactly.
like, come on, man,
So
like,
much.
it's just so much out there. That's why I'm humbled, man. Like, life life will humble you. Like
Quit.
the minute you done, that's the other thing. Them people that walk around, life gonna humble them. That's why I don't be worried too much. Like, okay, you's a charlatan. Life gonna, you gonna get found out. You gonna get humbled.
You gonna
like,
find a charlatan that's more charlatan than you.
Yeah, something gonna happen, man. Or you gonna fuck with the wrong student who takes you seriously.
Exactly.
You're gonna play with their life, and they gonna come for you. Like you know what I'm saying? Because you're playing with people. You're playing with people's life, and that's just a sad thing when people pimp spirituality and even pimp the self empowerment movement and this self development stuff. Like, you got people out there pimping. It's a $1 billion industry right now, this self-development thing. And when you read a lot of the self-development stuff, it ain't nothing different than what our ancestors was speaking on the spiritual context.
Well, that's
like,
where it comes from.
All that new, like all this self-development stuff that they're reading and the power of the mind and all that stuff, it's all coming from old. Like, it's not new, like, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes taken out of context and you know, bastardized. And you know that
without
can be
the
detrimental
history,
as well.
everything becomes mystery.
Yeah, man. But
to build on what you were saying about the days and the months, it's not even like we created them. It's like a day happens, the night happens, we observe it, and then you got to use that. That's what nature gives you to place yourself within that context. Plug Kemetic Sidereal Calendar, risingfirefly.org. Get that, you know, you'll get some exposure on how our ancestors actually used the cycles of nature that they were able to observe and then observe within themselves to place themselves within space and time with some relation to nature, which is the creation of the gods. So that's how we get closer to the divine world. This last topic is kind of like something that was more personal, but when I saw it on the list, I was like, man, we got to talk about this because just to preface it, right?
Oh, these personal questions now.
No question with this one. No question with this one. This is me personally.
I'm just messing with you.
So I was at Costco the other day, right? And I'm leaving Costco and I'm about to get in the car, and this guy stops me. He's like, man, I thought Costco was cheap. You see all this shit in my cart? And he had like maybe 5 things. He got like some water, some vegetables, you know, a couple packs of meat. He's like, all of this little bit of stuff, $150. $150. He had an accent. He's like Polish, but I don't want to mess up his accent. Like, $150. This is some bullshit. What is this, man? I thought Costco was supposed to be cheap. And then he started talking. He started giving all this philosophy about like the world. And I'm just like, yeah, man, we all need to go back to Africa. And he was like, you know what? You're right. You're right. Because in Africa, they understand culture and everything isn't about money. This world here, this thing that you see around you, it's all about money, and it's because of those fucking Jews. It's because of I swear, yo, it's because of those fucking Jews. He was like, you know what's, but it blew my mind when he said it. He was spot on. He said, you know what's going on in Israel? They're trying to expand their territory there, but you don't even see that this is their territory.
Exactly.
That's not Israel. This is Israel. Because they got it on lock. And I was like, man, you so right, bro. It's like, it's crazy how like on point that was. But then he started going into other stuff about like real estate and how like all of these natural, you'll think that it's a natural disaster that happens to like a building complex or something, you know, 9/11, stuff like that.
They blow that shit up.
But it's really just blowing up. So in Newark, there was this this mansion called the Kastner Mansion, and I got a little bit of history on it. So the Kastner Mansion was built for Franz J. Kastner, owner of the Phoenix Brewery, and he was a German immigrant that came to Newark and like, you know, built a legacy for himself or whatever. He got rich, and then they built this mansion for him. Now, that mansion was in a fire about 6 years ago, but it didn't fall. But everybody in the city, I'm from Newark, everybody in the city was like, they did that shit on purpose to try to build some sort of real estate. Now, years later, 4 years ago, there was a plan to put a building behind it. And they already started building the building behind it.
That's the one on Martin Luther King?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. The mansion right at the corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now there was another fire
for ages.
that happened just maybe a week ago. It caught on fire again. And this time it burnt all the way down. But as soon as it burnt down, somebody put like all of the comments on Instagram and all of that. It's like they did it on purpose. 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 And then a week later, somebody posted the plan that they had if that building fell to build like a tribute, like that looks like it on the front end, and then just build a complete like building complex behind it. So
that's the thing too, and which adds on to like everything we've been speaking about is that like these government leaders and all that, bro, even on a local level, there's so much shit going on that people have no idea about. Like I would tell you just even my experience as a lawyer. Like I clerked.
Damn, Joe. You did a lot.
Yo, I'm telling you, man. This is what I'm telling you. And yeah, I've only scratched the surface.
Right.
But I clerked 1 year, like after graduating law school. I was in Newark. I was in Essex County. I clerked 1 year in Superior Court Criminal Division. So that's state level for you, those of you outside New Jersey, state level criminal division. And I'll tell you this, man, having been there, I clerked. So I was in the chambers with the judge and all that. Like I saw, what most people don't see.
Got it down though.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you this, man. Like it's a whole bunch of shit going on that people have no idea about. I'm talking about all kind of from scams, the credit cards and all that stuff, all the way down to just local crime and stuff that you never hear about because it's not on the news. But I'm telling you, there's even like more so talking about now is like there's so many things happening that people are unaware about, even local crime, small time crime, but even to bigger like conspiracy cover ups and all that. It's so much of it going on because so much of this stuff is based on greed. You know what I'm saying? And understanding like going back to how we started this conversation all about the spiritual context and the spiritual journey, that's a challenge that you might find. How do you overcome greed, man? Like that's something that people are faced with. Because a lot of us don't even realize it, but yeah, living in this country, it is very easy to fall into the rat race, and you won't even realize it. Like you won't even realize it. Like if you right now are looking for a job or you're looking for a career that you're going to you're part of it. Like you're looking for a career based on what's going to provide for you and what's going to pay you. Like whether you like it or not. Like I understand life is real. We got bills to pay. So, but at the same token, some people don't even understand and don't even see how this reality is influencing them. Right. Taking them away from that spiritual journey.
Like Lisa was saying. We had Dr. Lisa Lacan on a few weeks ago. Okay. And she like helps people who just got out of prison like get jobs and things of that nature. There's a more illustrious way to explain it. There's a real title for it, but I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But she was explaining how like, she got into that industry because your job is really something that defines you in this world like that we live in. It's how you eat. It's how you like make your living. It's how you put a roof on top of your head. So
career
it's
reform,
like
I think.
Yeah, career reform. But it's like a connection that a lot of people don't realize. Like, and people end up going crazy out here. Kind of not knowing how to identify themselves outside of that. Yeah. So, what you're saying is true.
No, we live in a very challenging time, spiritually speaking, man. Like back in the day with the ancestors, it was easier. Like we got to give ourselves a little more credit for what we've been dealing with because like, the distractions and it's more clever. It's more technological. Like we're really dealing with some things. Back in the day, things were a little simpler. You just have to deal with outside invading armies and stuff like that. You have to deal with the natural elements, and that's about it. Like, what else you got to deal with? You know what I'm saying? It's either outside invading army, like maybe sickness, you know what I'm saying? But we know our ancestors had the health thing kind of on lock, you know what I'm saying? Vibrational. We know they was doing a lot of great things in a lot of African civilizations, healing people. So we know that piece was there. But outside of that, they weren't bogged down by all these, like, technological advances and like look at what social media is doing to the younger generation. Like there's people killing themselves over like social media posting pages. Like that stuff is real now. We can't sit here and say, well, when we were growing up, you gotta grow tough skin. But listen, but this is what they're dealing with, and that challenge to them is real. So for them and their spiritual journey, like overcoming the influence of social media and not caring what others think and project on you, and like that's a part of their spiritual journey. And like quite honestly, like all these things that we're speaking about, the African traditions and the African legacies have answers for all of that. Like that's what people need to know. Like in Christianity and when I was in the Catholic Church, like it's just always this idea that, it's the word of God you know, and that you read the word of God. But, you know, in African traditions, God never stopped speaking. So we have the oracle. Like, the answer, you had asked a question earlier about the names and how we gave names at the Temple of Anu. It was a process. So you have to go through rites of passage. Like, it's not, you have to qualify for your name. We don't just give it out there because it's a serious thing. And when a teacher gives a student a name, they're responsible for that as well. Like, that's how serious it is. When you're teaching a student something, they have to qualify for the knowledge that you're giving them, because not everybody is ready or able to comprehend that information and that knowledge. So I do believe that there's gateways, there's gatekeepers, whether it's an actual organization or whether it's just your life. Like, God works whether you believe it or not. Like, you know what I'm saying? And spirit works in a way where it's going to take you through your rites of passage, whether you're a part of an organization or not. Life gonna bring you through some things that's going to be your rites of passage, if you have the wisdom to open your eyes and see it as such. Because God always provides. God never stopped talking. Like, that's what we have to understand. God just doesn't speak in words. God speaks through our experiences. God speaks through our intuition. God speaks through our feelings. You know what I'm saying? So God is always communicating. This thing we call God is always communicating. And there's, you know, we're always searching to try to find some meaning and try to find some understanding. And that's a lifelong journey, you know. But my premise and what I always tell people is that, you know, human experience, you cannot separate from the journey of the soul. And so that's what's happening nowadays. We've separated the human experience from the journey of the soul, and that's why there's so much isfet going on, so much imbalance going on, is because we're separating day-to-day life from the spiritual world. And our ancestors did the opposite, and our ancestors divinized day-to-day things. We understood the power of divinity, and every day was a divine experience because we were looking at things through a different context. So I think nowadays we just need a little bit more of that, man. We need to look at reality through a different context and start to understand that spiritual journey and the human experience are inseparable. You can't separate them. So everything you're going through as a human in this human experience on another level is a token. Like, you know what I'm saying, is a gem really for you to unwrap and see what, you know, it can give you and gain you. And, you know, like I said, this question is, you searching for the truth? Just keep searching. Like, truth always reveals itself. And, like, that's really the key. Like, people who looking for truth, keep searching. Like, this is a path that takes an entire lifetime for you to walk. So don't rush it. It's a process. It takes time to understand things. You know, what I know now, I didn't know back then. You know, and I can only imagine that 10 years from now, I will learn some more things that I don't know right now. So, you know, allow yourself to be taught and, like, humble yourself and learn.
Real quick before we you know, I don't know if there's any other questions or anything. I wanted to let you plug yourself, Joe. You know, if there's anything else that you have going on right now.
All right. So I appreciate that. Like, so basically right now, like, you could find me. I'm still building up. Like, prior to, like I said, and maybe I'll be back on another time and we'll share more of the personal journey, because I have a lot I will share. But like right now, like I said, one of the main things I'm focused on is building this personal coaching business. That's the way I'm deciding and helping to give back is through personal coaching. I have an Instagram page. You can find it as Solar Guidance. Solar, as in the soul, SOULAR, Solar Guidance. That's just the premise. Like, my whole angle with working with people is, listen, in the human experience, sometimes you gotta let your soul be the guide. So through that, I also, like, you know, I think it's very effective that, like, bringing another element to the conversation is the neuro-linguistic programming. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but NLP it's like a science-based approach. And I ain't say Scientology, people, like, calm down. Science-based approach, but it's neuro-linguistic programming. It's studying how our mind creates meaning around the experiences we have, and how those experiences we tie into the words that we use. So it's just real deep. Like, you know, a lot of people end up going through traumatic experiences, and that's the experience they have. And based on that experience, our mind processes it a certain way and creates, and oftentimes, these patterns of thinking. So, like, neuro-linguistic program, I found it interesting because it looks at that. And some of these guys that's out there, like the Tony Robbins and all that, that's all they're doing is helping people trace back the source of some kind of joy or the source of some kind of trauma and unfold it. Like, look at how it affect the way that you were thinking. So that's something I do. Like, I intertwine that with everything. But like I said, you can find me on Instagram, Solar Guidance, SOULAR Guidance, GUIDANCE. And you know, like, it's only a matter of time, man. But I'm taking the steps. And listen, this is the thing. When you're called, like, and when you're chosen, there's no running from it. You know, and there's some of us, and I'm speaking to some of you out there, that you know what you have to do, but you've been running from it. We live in a day and age right now where those of us that have that feeling, that know that we can help others and can contribute, stop waiting until you're perfect. Like, none of us are ever going to be perfect. And if we wait until we're perfect to actually give back and help people, then, hey, maybe some people ain't never going to get help. So my message is to those of you that have been sitting on the fence. It's time to make a decision. It's time to make a choice. Like, you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to put the good foot forward. And so I encourage you to do so. And like these brothers, there's those of us that's out here walking these paths, man. Nobody's perfect, but there are answers and there is instruction. There are, like, there is a way. Like, there is a way. There always has been a way, and there always will be a way. And I'll end on that.
All right, well said. All right, Solar Guidance.
Just to kind of build on what he was saying and plug on Costa real quick, because we find ourselves right now in a period of time where just the other day it was Sunstick Day, and that's basically a day on the Kemetic calendar where the Earth has distanced itself from the sun. Like, that's the most distance that it gets from the sun for the whole year. And during that period, you like honor the mother's lineage. So there's a fire festival that usually happens, and that's even like the origin of the Olympics. Like, where they get the whole, like, bearing the torch and, you know, doing all of that and showing off the talents, because we say that the destiny line is like where you get your talents from. Like, any talent that you can really recognize within yourself, you say that comes from your mother's side. You get your identity from your father. You get the work that you do from your father, but like the talents that you naturally might have, you get that from your mother's side. So next up on the calendar, the next, like, holy days that you'll see coming up on the calendar are the death of Wisser, the embalming of Wisser, and then there's a fasting period that happens during that time. Now, this time is very crucial in humanity because we see now there's just these things called seasonal acute depression or something like that, SAD.
Sad.
So, you know, we see that there's a change that happens when the seasons change, right, in the life as a human being. But for any of you out there who may have been touched by what Joe just was talking about, you know, in that search for some guidance, earth energy readings are a very, 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 very practical and pragmatic way for you to get guidance on, you know, what's happening in your life, maybe what has happened in the past, and then, you know, how to move forward. So if you are looking for something like that, in this time, because I know it can be challenging for a lot of people out there, especially this time of the year. It gets cold, you get to stay in the house, you don't really have, you know, that connection with nature in the same way, because Wisser has transitioned, you know, into the world of the dead. So if you are looking for that kind of guidance during this time, please reach out, anhlife.org, and book you a reading, man.
Yeah, we are the topics.
Yeah, that was it.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of the Get It Gates podcast. We're happy to have you here with us again tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.